Okay, good evening everybody, or good morning, good afternoon if you're watching online. Say shalom, say hello wherever you are in the world, let us know that you're out there. I want to continue a little from the last couple of weeks, based on what we did the last couple of months, the last couple of years, those that are following here, those who've been following online. We've been talking about something called hachana, the preparation. That prayer needs a preparation, that life needs a preparation. I can't expect to say the holy words of our sages when I go to pray and automatically, accidentally, suddenly be connected. There's a preparation, a state of consciousness that I have to enter into that allows the potency of prayer to have an effect on me. Someone's giving you $100, $1,000, $1 million, and you hold out your hand and you want to receive the money. As long as your hand is closed, then there could be $1 billion, $1 trillion, and you can even hold out your hand. But until you open your hand, nothing can come in. Rav Nachman of Breslov says that our das, our consciousness, is like a hand. Consciousness is like a hand. That means that it has to be open, it has to be ready. You have to be open-minded, so to speak. It has to be receptive. You have to be receptive to the energy, receptive to the insight, receptive to the holiness in the words, receptive to the holiness in the words. And this is key in life, in relationship, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, there's a spiritual power in the moment to connect to the Chachma, the Seichel Shebachol Davar, the spiritual potency of every moment, every opportunity, of every person you meet as a holy soul that you can interact with, that you can learn from, that you can connect to in a profound, transformative way. But our minds are closed. So there's a preparation called the Hachana. We've gone through, you've seen some of the pages, some of the papers. You grabbed one when you came in. If not, you'll get one when you go out. Talking about a whole process of how we prepare ourselves to enter into deeper states called the Hachana. And that's a liquid, it's a collection of many different techniques that are discussed in the Talmud, in the Midrashim, in the Shulchan Aruch, in the book of Jewish law, in Chassidut, in Kabbalah. And one of those elements of preparation of consciousness is the power of his kashrus, and that's what we've been discussing, the power of his kashrus. The power of connection. That our mind has the capacity, for lack of a better term, to psychically bond. To bond with other people around us, to other things. In the physical world, it could be a tree, it could be another person, it could be an object, it could be a mitzvah. In the higher worlds, to different worlds themselves, different angels, different names of God, and the source of everything, of course, Hashem itself, that's called Dveikus. And we have the power to connect our mind to other things. And this is mamish part of Shulchan Aruch. This is not just weird stuff. This is in many places we mentioned last week, many other places in Shulchan Aruch. This is part of living our life as a daily Jew, as a daily human being, whoever we are. That we go through life seeing the essence of something, connecting to its energy, and through that, as we learn, as we experience, remarkably enough, I have the power to gain wisdom, knowledge, if you could call it intuition, if you call it psychic ability, if you call it Ruach HaKodesh Ma'at, to gain knowledge about that person, knowledge about that object, knowledge about that situation by connecting to them, and receiving energy from them. Unfortunately, if I'm more empathic, if I'm more emotionally sensitive and open, I can also receive negative emotional energy of people, be influenced by them in a negative way, and I have to prepare appropriate protection from that as well. And I can influence. It's a door that swings both ways. Last week, the week before, that we saw many times quite remarkable things. The people in the room that were dealing with blocks or issues, etc., together we could connect to them and affect them. And that is not, and we saw them have breakthroughs because of that. And remarkably, this is, Mamish brought down in Shulchan Aruch, this is why the essence in the mystical writings, why we pray together in a minyan as a group, and we pray only in the plural form, is because we're connecting and joining and bonding and influencing each other through that act of prayer. And that's not something that just happens automatically. The more, like any skill set, the more you know how to connect your mind, you know or how to bond, how to influence, how to give, how to receive. These are all skill sets, are part of daily life, what it means, to be a Torah Yid in the world. So I want to talk out a frequently misunderstood thing tonight, and then we'll talk about it for a few minutes together, and we'll do a very basic practice, just at being moisif, just to add on to a little of what we've experienced so far together. I want to talk about an idea in Kabbalah, and we're going to just talk about it in a very, very basic way, of something called chakika. And chakika is connected to something called dimyan. I'll describe what these words mean. And b'derech klal, in general, this is something that's very deeply misunderstood. I was going to say about Chassidus, it's deeply misunderstood in the Misnagdim versus the Chassidim. Those that define themselves on the Chassidic path, or understanding what was it the Baal Shem Tov wanted to teach us. And those who decided, for whatever reason, the Chavetz Chaim says, for deep spiritual reasons, in a complex way, to be against the Chassidim. And there's a common misunderstanding, and it's key that we understand that, not just understand history or understand the politics, but because to understand, if we understand a core part of that, you'll see these are tools that we need every day of our life to connect to our God and to connect to ourselves, to just be healthy human beings. Forget about being holy human beings. We need to learn to be healthy human beings. And you can't be a healthy human being. So we always say in the elevation classes, the elevation seminars, an online mastery program, you can't be healthy, you can't be holy until you're healthy. I was talking with a very holy, wonderful woman today, who's going through who's an incredible soul, who's making incredible difference in chinuch, Jewish education, and an incredible level, and she's dealing with her own problem, her own service in her own life, and she's caught in a situation with one of her holy children who's having a lot of challenges right now, and things that any mother would feel pained to experience, to know what's happening to their children. And she was telling me that, when the situations come up, she does what she can to affect the child, to help the child, but once this stuff happens, she can't stop the bad thoughts. For sure, whatever influence she wants to make on the world, the capacity to stop thinking the worst case scenario in her head and running through the worst case scenario in her head is just, kamat impossible, almost impossible for her. This is the nature of the mind, this is the nature of our hearts, and she's a very holy, insightful woman, but I had to stop her when she said that. I said, I need you to know, I was going to say with all my heart, but with all the heart of all of Torah, the heart of Hashem, the heart of the Lev of Shemayim, that is absolutely, unequivocally false, untrue, that you have no power to stop your thoughts. In her life, she may feel helpless of what's happening in her family. I said to her at the beginning, if you want to talk about this, is there something logistical that can be done right now? Can we some kind of intervention to help? Do we need to strategize on that? And she said, no, this particular situation she's caught in, there's nothing can be done to help. So then a person feels incredibly stuck as a victim, helpless. Helpless is the word, right? There's nothing I can do right now. So she's telling me in one sense there's nothing she can do, and that's part of the pain, and she's also telling me that she can't control the thoughts no matter what. So there's always something you can do, and when there's nothing you can do, the one thing you can do is control your inner consciousness. And that's the definition of free will. The definition of free will is in three arenas, in three realms. The choice of action, the choice of speech, and the choice of thought. And if your actions are limited, and if your speech is limited, then thought and feelings are always under your control. I understand that sometimes it feels like it isn't. I understand that sometimes it feels the thoughts are overwhelming. I understand that sometimes it feels the feelings are overwhelming, and you push them out and they come back, and they push them out and come back. But it's not true. Sometimes we have not yet acquired the skill set to deal with it. So it doesn't help to give that person a guilt trip that they can't stop the negative thinking. I'm not here to give guilt trips. You can and you should and you have to and you must and you have long for not doing it. But there are skill sets a person can learn. And you can't be holy until you can be healthy, and you can't be healthy until you can learn to stop negative thinking patterns. It's just the aleph base, not of being Jewish or being religious, but of just being a human being. By definition, Rav Nachman says explicitly, if you can't do that, you are still an animal. He's not insulting you. He's not saying you're just an animal. But he's saying if you're a person that lives when the automatic desires of lust, of fear, of ego come up, and they consume you, and then you act on them, then there is no human being yet within you, because the definition of being an Adam, a human being, is a person whose will, whose higher knowledge of consciousness, of higher awareness, affects and influences their thoughts and their speech and their actions, rather than being on automatic animalistic pilot. And therefore, he's saying that if you're still on automatic animalistic pilot, and there's not a part of you that knows how to stop that and steer that in another direction, then you are, no insult intended, just an animal. There's some Google map helping us guide the way. Can we hear that? Is there something going off? Is that somebody's phone? Is there something in the kitchen? Someone left a phone in the kitchen? I always, get lost in these classes. I help any guidance to help me along my ways. I really appreciate it, but I just don't want to mess with the concentration of the Cheva over here. Shalom to the holy Cheva fans out there in video land. Say hi wherever you're from once you get here. So to be healthy, to be human by definition, if a person is living their life full of ego and anxiety and fear and lust and doubt and pain and fury, and they go through their life and they're making money and they're learning, getting PhDs, whatever, but it's still all motivated by those things, then the capacity to be human is a capacity that we have something within us called higher self, true consciousness, deeper understanding, and we don't just have it, but we act and express that. And if we're consumed by everything by that, and our consciousness is in exile, we're not aware of that deeper sense, then we live as animals in the world, which unfortunately, by Rav Nachman's definition, would be most of the people most of the time. Shalom to the holy Chava out there. So, with that in mind, to be human, we need to learn to stop those thoughts. We need to learn to do the process of hashkata, of silencing, to be human. But Torah and the Tzadikei Emes, Hashem wants us to be more than human. We're supposed to become malachim, like angels. We're supposed to not be limited by our physical being, by our physical lives, by what we're buying and selling, who we're hanging out with, what we're doing, the details of our lives. We're supposed to enter into a deeper transcendent consciousness, a deeper transcendent awareness, both when we close our eyes to go higher, but also with our eyes open when we interact with the world. We're supposed to be drawing on a deeper state, sense, self, knowledge, wisdom. So it's one thing to stop the thoughts, the noise, the bilbulim, the monkey mind, to come back to ourselves. It's another thing to transcend ourselves, to move from what's called das tachton to das elyon, from the lower self, which actually is my true self, rather than my animal self. There's the animal self and the animal consciousness. Then there's silencing of that, the returning, the awakening to my true self, my essential self, my mindful self, my self-aware self, my inner connected and grounded and compassionate, insightful self. But there's something even deeper, which is my supernatural self, the das elyon. So the first step from animal to human is a step which we more traditionally learn about in standard Jewish teachings, in standard yeshiva models, in standard religious education, that it's better to be a person of the mind, to be logical, to be rational, to be reasonable, rather than a person who is irrational, illogical, unreasonable. I move from the state of chaos, of bilbulim, of confusion of the heart, and I access a place of objectivity rather than emotional subjectivity, of broader perspective rather than, of insight, of wisdom, of knowledge, of rational thinking, of rational behavior. And I negate and I reject and often I mock the emotional irrationality, the chaos, and something called dimyonis. Demionis. Does anyone have a good translation of the word demionis? Delusions is pretty good. Imagination, standard is like usually imagination something. I don't like either of these definitions, though they're pretty good, they're pretty like accurate, delusions or imagination. Because if I said, those delusional people with demionis, so you'd go, yeah, those delusional people. There's people lost in their imagination. You imagine, I don't know, some hippie hugging a tree, lost in their imagination. Someone staring off into the sunset, lost in their imagination. It pushes away the problem that all of us are dealing with, and probably even dealing with right this second. Would you consider yourself right now a delusional human being? Right now, are you lost in your imagination? So some of you may be honest enough to say, pretty much, yes, it's been a hard day and I'm kind of lost in my demionis right now. So demionis is much closer to home than the way we imagine the words imagination and than we imagine the words delusion. It's fantasies, but I'm going to fantasies. It's something that's happening right now. It's a projection screen that you're projecting onto the world right now with every word, with every interaction. There's a bunch of noise of feelings which are creating a filter system between you and reality, and that's called demionis, about what is true, what is not true, what is good, what is bad, how you're judging and perceiving my words, or not judging and perceiving my words because you think about something that happened at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock last week, or next week on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, and you're gone and you're here and you're there, and it's creating a reality distortion field is what it's creating. And it's happening to you right now. So, the standard teaching of standard Torah in the modern world, which is very strong in the litvish yeshivas, which is wonderful, is that a person has to move out of demionis. That's why we master our mind through intellectual analysis, through analytical analysis, learning the Gemara, the Talmud, all these kind of things. It's because what I'm trying to get out is being lost in my emotional reality and try and get up to a more objective, clear thinking, linear, objective, rational, reasonable mindset. And that has become the main face and the main approach of Judaism today. And the value of that, which should be very clear, is that is needed, because if not that, we are animals. Lahavdil Elf Havdalah is Freud, Sigmund Freud, our friend, right? It's very interesting to know about Freud that he didn't listen to music. You ever heard this before? Freud had this theory not to listen to music because part of what he thought was his power with his rational, analytical mind, and he didn't want to contaminate his mind with the emotional reality, the demionis of music. Ad kidei kach, until what point? Until he didn't listen, he didn't want to enter into that reality. Because now I know some Rosh Hashivas that are like this as well. Right? And what it gives them is this incredibly insightful, crystal clear, linear, analytical mind, which is without any sheikhad, without any bribery of emotions, without any nagias, because any emotional reality that comes up, they know it, which is true, it bends and distorts my perception. So part of the development of a human being, from being an unconscious being to being a conscious being, from being a behemoth to being an Adam, from being an animal to being, awakened, is the coming out of demionis, is the coming out of the fantasies, of coming out of the delusions, of coming out of the expectations, coming out of how I need and perceive a reality, and I project, I vomit up my desires onto people, and they don't fulfill my desires, and then I hate and resent them, and now I lust and adore them. And that whole irrational approach that most people, if I have the money, then I will be happy. Oh, nobody's happy because they have the money. Yeah, I know, that's true, you're so right. But anyway, I have to get the money. Why? Because those demionis are so real. If I have the pretty girl, if I have the car, if I have the person that looks like I need them, then happiness will come. Why do we keep pursuing that, even though we know it's not true? Because even though rationally we kind of know it's not true, the rational part of our mind is not strong enough to override the demionis of our mind. And therefore, the first level of human development, of Torah development, is to move from irrational demionis human beings into rational, free, open, intellectual, intelligent minds. But, as you can see this coming a mile away, because you know my style a little, that's not the end. Even if they told you it was. And this is one of the deepest secrets in Kabbalah, in Chassidut, and one of those deeply, deeply misunderstood secrets. I remember there was a certain teacher in yeshiva who didn't like this kind of stuff that I'm into. Keep that as general as possible. And he brought me a source from the Holy Rav Dessler. Of course, Rav Dessler was full of the Tanya and full of Likutei Moharan. He says it explicitly, you can read it. Rav Dessler himself asked the Chazon Ish when he wrote his holy works, whether he could not. Our sages say that when you quote a sage, you're supposed to quote, when you quote the sage, the Torah of the sage says you should always quote the name of the sage. And the sages even say it's a very powerful thing that can even bring Mashiach. So Rav Dessler was a very, very holy Yid, and he wrote his own mafteach, his own kind of, how do you say mafteach? I don't even know how to say it. His own mafteach on Likutei Moharan. He went through all of Likutei Moharan, all the stories of Rav Nachman in depth. He studied the Baal HaTanya, he studied in incredible depth. But he asked the Chazon Ish, the great master, the Chazon Ish, that when he publishes his book, can he have permission not to mention the names of the Hasidic masters within the book? Because he knew that some people would be put off and wouldn't want to learn the truth with him. Rav Nachman was smart enough to say, teach my teachings not in my name, because you're more likely to get them into the air conditioning, so to speak, into the water. I'm not as smart enough as Rav Dessler, so obviously I'll take that risk. But I think we need to know the names in our generation, because we need to know the sources to go that will really speak to us in a deep, real way. So if you ever go up to my study, you'll see there's a picture up there of Dessler talking to the Chazon Ish. I don't know when that picture was taken, but in my mind, I like to think that's that conversation. So the teaching from Rav Dessler said the following thing. The teachings of Rav Dessler said that most of Chassidus is just dimyon. It's just imagination. Most of Chassidus is just about imagination. And this teacher wanted to say to me, you see, it's not like spirituality. It's just like classic Muslim. By the way, Muslim is not about this either, but it's just a fundamental misunderstanding. That most of Chassidus is about Dimyon. He wanted to show me, even though it's not true at all, and since then you know enough to wipe the floor with these arguments, which is, it's all of just imagination. You imagine holy things. What happens when you imagine holy things? Then you feel holy and spiritual, and you imagine God loves you, and then you feel emotionally, and you feel loving, and you imagine God's awesome and big, and then you feel emotional big. So if you're low enough and emotional enough, and you need that emotional stuff, so Chassidus is all about emotional stuff. But it rots your mind. It rots your mind, because you're like Freud listening to music. And greatness, true greatness, comes by not engaging in emotions, by not engaging in dimyon. And that's imagination. But of course, there are sources that say that we should engage in that to create emotional hispilus, emotional waking. So I want to explain to you something. I want to explain to you the lie that is. And when I say lie, I want you to know there is no sefer, Torah sefer I've ever read, from the Rambam to the Ramchal, to the Vilna Gaon, to all of Chassidus for sure, and all of Kabbalah for sure, that believes that idea about intellect over heart. The reason I like to bring up Freud, because it makes sense that a secular guy like Freud would believe that. But no Torah source says that. And for sure, Rav Dessler didn't say that. And if you read his text in depth, you will understand the secret when I want to teach you tonight. The Tzaddikim call this idea that when I rise up from the animal state to the conscious, intellectual, rational man, woman, being, that's only the first step. And now I need to take the next step. And the next step is to become a supernatural being. And I'm not talking about something for Siddiqim or something one day for someone. I'm talking about skill sets you can access now and abilities you can access now, which are part of your heritage, which are part of your tradition. And how do you get there? How do you go up? I know what it means that I'm overwhelmed by emotions. I know what it means to quieten those emotions, and because I know what it means to work on my mind and to be more rational, reasonable. So that's great. So I'm always, because I'm dealing with that a little. Some people are so caught, many people come to you, are so caught in emotions and so being irrational in their life, you realize their whole lives are miserable because of that, and you need to pull them up. Give less attention to the emotional reality, more attention to the objective consciousness. Don't indulge in their pain so much. Don't run after their fantasies and destroy their relationships. Start to become more objective. For sure you need that. Absolutely. But then, now I'm rational, now I'm reasonable, now I'm analytical, now I can tell you what's in the Chumash, I can tell you what's in Rashi. I understand the Gemara and in depth all what the Gemaras see, and I'm very reasonable life. It doesn't mean I have a feeling of love. It doesn't mean I have a feeling of connection to God. That's too emotional for me. It doesn't mean I, let's say, love my wife or connect to my wife. I'm not entering into that emotional reality. It doesn't mean I have deep insight. It doesn't mean I see God in everything. It doesn't mean I feel tremendously guided. It doesn't mean I know how to do mitzvahs like prayer. Okay, it's just prayer. And I get into worse psychological issues then. Because the heart needs to feel. The Piazetzin says when your heart does not have expression in holiness, then it will send you off the derech. It will send you away from Torah and mitzvahs. Because it wants to feel pleasure. And if it can't get pleasure from holy things, then rather than killing itself, rather than numbing itself and repressing itself, it will force you to get pleasure from everything in the world. And you know what? It's kind of good. At least it's alive. At least it feels something. Give me a passionate person that doesn't want to connect to God. Any day over a person that doesn't want to connect to God is not passionate, but is doing religious things. Because where there's passion, desire for pleasure, desire for love, then you have an engine that can be steered towards holiness. So I want to tell you this amazing secret called being yored, to descend to the Merkava. The Merkava is what we call the vessel, the chariot. It's a deep, deep word with so many secrets. But the basis of the Merkava, the Kisei HaKavod, is that there is a way to go more than just being from an animal to a human, from being a human to a supernatural being, and the things you can learn to access the supernatural state, that wisdom, that insight, that power of connection, of transformative devekas, of feeling Hashem, of knowing that reality, of seeing it, of experiencing in all of your life, of willfully bringing to your life what you need, of willfully taking away negativity through the law of attraction, what's called the koach hamoshech, the power of drawing with your mind, with your consciousness. The way you go up is by going down. The way that we access higher spiritual experience, guess how? Is by first descending back to the heart. The heart is the springboard, is that the word? You read it, Sarach Aliyah, which gets me higher than intellect. And the reason you have demureness and the reason you have emotions is because that's what the prophets used to go to a supernatural level. I understand that Freud doesn't listen to music, if that may be a good ascama to you, but the prophets listened to music, not just in general, but to actually enter the prophetic state. And this is the secret that Rav Dessler was teaching when he said the majority of Chassidus is just dimyonis. He wasn't meaning in your mind. He was saying the rov of Chassidus, so much of Chassidus is about using your mind to imagine certain holy things, which if you know how to do it, then launches you in to supernatural true experience, which is different from imaginatory experience. But what happens is you use the imagination to tune yourself into the power of your soul, so that your neshama, that light, that supernatural wisdom, then can come down and enter into you. And from that, you let go go of the imagination, you let go of those feelings, and you launch out and beyond. So the first step of human development, very deep, profound models, if you get this, is to move beyond the heart, beyond the imagination, beyond the delusion, into rational, unreasonable. That's absolutely a necessary part of the process. But the next step, ironically, which is a bit of a shock to some people that like to say that's the end of our religion, is then you say, but why did God make Dimyon? Why did God make imagination? Why did he make those things? And the answer is because he wants us to be supernatural. To be supernatural, then you need to access all of your being, all of that nature, and you leverage that, and then you launch up and out. Questions? Elliot?
With the Gedolim of this nugget world, accessing their greatness without this?
The term the Gedolim of the Misnagdish world is a very interesting term for me. I don't know who the Gedolim of the Misnagdish world are. From the Stipler to the Chazon Ish to all this holy chevra. There were Malei Torah, there were Malei Kedusha, there were Malei L'Sfarim and Kedoshim. You don't think they learned the Zohar? I like to say a lot, the problem is always with middle management. Gedolim? Gedolim that have Gedolim, or like big rabbis? I've yet to hear of Gedolim who weren't shaykh to Kedusha on this level.
And yet they sort of developed the derech for people through the more classical...
It's very interesting what happened, and it's very interesting the powers that they had as individuals and what they advised other people to do. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. But I can show you enough Litvish Rabbanim who are Mali Kedusha, Mali, full of holiness and full of Devekas and full of right. So what I find is the closer you get to the top with the people that I've met, the closer you get to the top, the more expansiveness is there. It can still be that they say don't do this and do this, but their own abilities, they find access to that in different ways. It doesn't mean that every person I've met who has a long beard who's learning in Torah holds like that, no.
So were they asking that foundational approach would be this more kind of classical yeshivish?
Except the challenge is when they say that's the end. The challenge is when they say that's the end and everything else stops there. There are many, many people that could benefit by living intellectually and clearly and lucidly rather than demyonis for a few years of their life. The majority of civilization would be in a better place if we could do that. But you'll find the secret in our generation is, and don't take this personally, we're so messed up in our hearts that intellect is not enough for us anymore. And I'm just quoting the Baal Shem Tov when I say that. That means the intellect, and you know, I can talk in psychological models like CBT. CBT, the big breakthrough that everyone needs to buy, and there's so much problems with CBT today. So many top therapists say it's not enough, it doesn't work. CBT, the rational, reasonable, mind over heart process is just not enough for most people to consistently break through because the pain, the damage we carry is so big. And there's only one way to break through deep, deep pain, and that is to go higher to a place which transcends the pain and blast it out with light. It's just what we need, and that's okay. It's okay to reach for what you need. Yes, Sarah. Hi.
You were talking about stopping thoughts, so I just wanted to know if you're talking about like stopping the thoughts from coming, or stopping them, or like managing them once they've come.
Okay. Do we stop the thoughts before they come? Do we manage them once they come? And the answer is yes. There are tools and wonderful techniques from our holy works for all of these opportunities. You can stop the thoughts from coming up in the first place. You can stop them once they're there. You can stop the root of the thoughts. The root of the thought is the emotion, the core emotional pain or fear or lust, the ego. If you eradicate and eliminate that, then there's nothing there to generate the negative thoughts in the first place. For some techniques, some people, the techniques of shkat, of silencing the mind, works best. For some, you do the halat and amidas, which is to to go through the thought to the emotional root and melt away the emotional root, and therefore you've not just like, then you've knocked out the whole entity itself. Then what we're going to learn tonight and what we've done in previous weeks, I'm just giving a title for it and teaching you the Torah terminology for it, which is when you do the coolest thing, which is to take the thought itself in mid-flight and shift around. Is it judo? When you take the energy of the attack and you shift it around? That's called chakika, as we're going to see. That you take the power of thought and thinking and imagination itself in real time and you rechannel that energy towards holiness. So all the options you said and more are all on the table. What we're looking for is control in a healthy, positive way. That I am a master. It's called being a baldas. What does that mean? I'm a master of my consciousness. And to be a master of the consciousness, you have to, know all the kung fu moves. You have to have the full repertoire. Because at any given time, the emotions may be stronger, the thoughts may be overwhelming. Here, they're not so overwhelming, but there's another aspect that's in there. So I need to know. So one by one, we'll talk about these things. Debbie Bayer says, CBT, etc., not enough to break through. Beautifully articulated. Thank you. Thank you to you. Well, you're the professional. You get paid to do this stuff. So that's an honor to actually accidentally say something that resonates with you, that's true, from a professional sense. Any other questions for now? Okay. How to do that? I have a whole class on that. Would you like to hear? Here we are. Great. So I want to talk about this idea called chakika. You can first see this lashon used in something as ancient as the Sefer Yetzirah, which we're talking already thousands of years old, according to our tradition. And now it's talking about, there's a chakika of oisius. How do you translate the word chakika? Does anyone have a translation for this word? Engraving, right? You're supposed to engrave the letters in your mind. It's always a very, very weird, mystical word, wasn't it? How do you engrave a letter in your mind? So all this is taking a long way around to just pick up on what we said last week, just to pick up what we explored last week. Chakika means that as your mind runs, and your mind is always running, it's always moving from subject to subject, me'inyan le'inyan. Your mind is not just the capacity to think. Fundamentally, Kabbalistically, your mind is the capacity to connect. Your mind is not just the capacity to understand. Fundamentally, we understand in order to connect. When you focus on something, when you focus on a person, then you connect with them. When your mind is running around 1,000 different places, someone could be talking to you and you can't connect to them. They can be giving you something and you're reaching to them, but the hand is closed. What you put your attention on is what you connect to, both psychologically, right? You're telling me about your issues, I'm listening to you, right? And we're connecting because I'm giving you my full attention. And if I have noise in my head, so I won't give you my full attention. So I'll be nodding and going, doing the external sign of being a good listener. But I'm out to lunch. If I'm listening, if I'm engaged, and I'm connecting. But spiritually speaking, that's true as well. Which is one of the classic axioms that told us Yaakov Yosef brings down for the Baal Shem Tov over and over and over and again. You are wherever your thoughts are. You are completely where your thoughts are. And therefore, if your thoughts are, as the Hasidic masters say, your thoughts are with your beloved in another country, and you're thinking about them, connecting to them, then you create a psychic bond at that moment, and you can receive information and energy from them, and you can give, in effect, energy to them. If you move your head into the spiritual worlds, and you think of a certain world, like the world of Yetzirah, the world of Bria, the world of Atzilus, with its incredible light and sense of unity, sense of peace, sense of magnificence, of joy, of simcha, of holiness, and you put your mind there, then suddenly you energetically receive. Now, if you're into the word energetic, you go, I totally get what he's saying. If you're like, what is that? That's weird. I don't go. It means that there's properties you can access at that moment from that place. Why do we turn to face the temple when we go to pray? It's not just to remind me that there's a temple, because it just had to say, Remember that there's a temple. I turn my whole body. I fix my entire intent on that, because what I'm supposed to do is bond energetically with my consciousness to that place and receive the property of that. And you can learn how to do that. And we've done that the last few weeks, and people experience extraordinary things. His kashrus to tzaddikim, to connect to great spiritual masters who are alive today, who are alive all the time back from Adam and Rishon, is a normal halachic part of Judaism. It's in our prayer books that we're supposed to, at any holy time, join our mind, pick a holy tzaddik, a holy tzaddikus, a holy spiritual master, bind our minds to them, and we get blessings, and we get clarity, and we get guidance from that. That's called zchus avos. That's why we constantly talk about Abraham, Yitzhak, Isaac, Jacob. That's constantly why we talk about the beginning of the prayer. We're not just throwing, lip service. We're supposed to connect to them, and you can learn how to do that. And we've learned how to do that. If you miss some of those videos, you'll get them on YouTube. You do the Elevation Mastery Program. We break that down. People interested, you can check that out at elevationproject.global. So with this in mind, when our mind is all over the place, then we can't use the power of connection to anything. We don't connect in our relationships. We don't connect in any of our mitzvahs. We don't connect professionally. We're distracted. Even though I'm talking to you, I'm not fully engaged. And the more I learn to focus my mind, the more I learn to master my attention, the more I become, it's what's called a baldas. I get more than wisdom. I get more than knowledge. I get more insight. I get a supernatural capacity to connect, which the mystics say is the fundamental tool of living as a Torah Jew in the world. And that's when active, everyday mitzvahs, rote mitzvahs, become incredibly spiritually potent, and this is accessible to you. Now, if you understand what we're saying so far, my friends, the action of chakika, of engraving, means to take the power of dimyon, to take the power of imagination, and rather than let it dictate to you, you dictate to it what to form itself into. For example, let's say, as I had an experience this week, that there's a person I know and love who we're trying our best to help, and he's had a lot of pain in his life, and he feels he holds on to a lot of cruelty and anger, and he deeply wants to find kindness. He senses in the depth of his heart that he's a kind person, and he wants to be a kind person, but he sees so much of his life as anything but that. He's an extremely powerful, influential person in the world. And it would make a difference in the world if this person could find that, and he wants to find that. So we do an incredible action. How is he going to become kind? He can read a book about kindness. He can practice giving some charity. And all of that is about actions. And when your heart is full of pain and anger and fear, a little action is very nice. You could even say a little action goes a long way. But you know what? It doesn't really. It doesn't really. It's not really enough to heal a lifetime of pain. It's not really enough to heal Gilgulim after Gilgulim, lifetimes of anger or fear. You need to shift massively your energy, shift massively your programming. So what he did, amazingly enough, is we learned a technique some of us have done together before. Who is the model of kindness in our tradition? Abraham. So we followed a technique that our sages taught, where he binds his mind to the consciousness of Abraham, and was so rocked by this energy that came over him of kindness. And we call Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher, because the mystical sages teach us, he's still our teacher. You can turn to him and ask him for guidance. He has the property of das. All of Chassidus and Kabbalah discusses constantly, what does it mean that the Ushpizin come into our sukkah? It means those aspects of consciousness come into our sukkah, and they're accessible to us at that moment. And within that moment of learning how to access the power of Abraham, then at that moment what he did is he felt this massive energetic shift within him. And he was able to say, how do I apply that in his life? He was able to get answers and experience incredible transformative energy. I was sitting there almost crying, watching this process take place. My job is like to set it up and facilitate it, but then the whole thing runs itself. It's like the master teacher is guiding and changing, and this person's opening and clarifying it, right? So it's a very powerful thing to just witness extraordinary before your eyes. How do you access that? So part of it's got to do with chakika. Chakika is when you engrave, which means rather than your dimyonis, your imagination, your fantasy, the power of imagination. Well, I'm hungry now because I've been thinking for the last 5 minutes about that pizza. So when you think about the pizza and you see the pizza and you imagine the taste in your mouth of the pizza, right, and you pull it out and the chewy thing and the crust, right? So I'm doing the work for you right now. And when you start going, pizza, man, there's a pizza shop after the class, man, I'll get a pizza, right? So you're already there, you're right there. So what that's done is it's drawn the soul, the energetic soul of pizza. Yes, there is such a thing, strangely enough, of taiva, of desire into you right now. So energetically, you're more cut off from your soul. But what you can also do is engrave on your mind in a holy image with holy feelings. And rather than letting your mind run from one to another subject, you keep it fixed in that place. And when you keep your mind fixed in a place with an image of holiness, with a theme of holiness, then you start to draw that energy and that light and that property to you in a tangible, real way. And then you let go of the dimyan. You let go of the imagination. And you find yourself suddenly, objectively, in that spiritual place, having that spiritual interaction. And then the Tzaddikim say, that is no longer imagination. And those who have never been there and don't get this stuff say, how do you know maybe it is? And the answer is, Hamevin Yavin. When you do it, when you know, you know. There's a difference between sitting here going, I'm in the spiritual world, and just being in the spiritual world. Let's play a game. Everyone close your eyes right now. Imagine you're in Daniel Katz's living room. Just imagine one day I'll be sitting in Daniel Katz's living room. Imagine what it's like. There's probably a big high ceiling. There's probably a couple of bookshelves. There's probably pictures of Tzaddikim on the wall. Now open your eyes. Maybe you're still imagining. Maybe you're imagining now. Right? Are you going, oh my gosh, maybe I'll never wake up. Maybe I'm a dream within a dream. No. You know the difference. And if you close your eyes again and you imagine what the walls would look like, you imagine the color, you imagine the sights and the sounds, you imagine the echo, the acoustics in the room, you can really, really make it real. You can really, really make it engaging. The more you practice with your dimyonis, the more you can do it. But when you open your eyes, you know you're really here. How do you know? Because you know. When you practice these techniques, you imagine, I'm imagining Avraham. Maybe I just made up that Avraham said it to me. Maybe I made up that past life. Maybe I made up that spiritual world I was in. You know what it means to make something up. And when you get it, then you know you're not making it up anymore.
Then you lose the control that we talked about.
What's that?
Then we lose the control.
No. Then you're being controlled from a higher, deeper place.
Because we're human.
No. So here's the secret. You ready? The first step to go higher than a human being is that you control your dimyonis. They don't control you. That's called chakika. You're taking that power of imagery and that power of feeling, and you're saying, you want to feel something? You want to see something? Let's see and feel something valuable and beautiful and holy. And the mind goes, that's really cool. And so is this and this and this. And you go, no, let's come right back to that point. And they go, no, let's come back to that point. And there's skill sets. You can learn how to do this. And then you are entering into the emotion. But because you have intellectual mastery now, because you have consciousness, then you can use that to elevate and guide the lower world. That's what it means to descend to the makava, to descend to the place down. And then when you guide it and build it, then what happens is you're zocher to heshras shechina. Then that thing that you're thinking about, its spiritual power, starts to truly come to you. So, and then what happens is you release the imagination, and then suddenly you're experiencing. We're going to do an exercise like this now. Then suddenly you're actually experiencing the real thing, and then you're not in control, but this is something very deep that came into me. Let me explain it to you like this. Is it good to be in control, or is it good not to be in control? Is it spiritually better to be in control? Or spiritually better to be out of control? Let's say you're all online. You like to feel out of control? Well, look at your eyes open up, right? I knew what the answer would be because your question already dictated what the concern is. You ever read the Heilige Chabad Sefer that talks about the Shtus, the Kedusha? It means to be out of control in a holy way. You know why it's awesome to give classes in Torah? When I teach Torah, it's the biggest meditation for me. And I can plan very clever classes, very brilliant classes, and I can give them exactly as they're planned, and they're okay. And all my best classes are where I'm totally out of control. You're an actor on stage, you know what that's like. There's a point when you're so engaged with the information, you're so engaged with the ideas, that there's a part of you that takes over and starts running with one idea and another idea and another idea, and you hear the ideas coming at you going, that's brilliant, but I didn't think about that. I'm not smart enough to think that way. And you realize something is riding you and riding through you, and you're watching like the audience is watching, and you're watching how the class weaves and spins and turns. You're out of control. You know what I mean a little? There's two forms of out of control. There's the destructive form of out of control, and there's the elevated high out of control. This is a deep, deep secret. Most people assume that being out of control in your life is the worst possible thing, and therefore they become control people. I'm intellectual, I'm analytical, I'm planned everything out, everything is going according to plan, here's my schedule, here's the rules, everything has to be on time. I don't like emotional people, I don't like irrational people, I don't like any chaos, I repress it because I'm in control. I am man, hear me roar. Those people will live miserable lives because they're under the delusion that they can be in control. And the world is a chaotic place. But there's another aspect where you feel deeply out of control with your emotions, with your fear, with your lust, with your desires. I was talking to someone about this today. I end up talking about it a lot. That a lot of people, if you ask, again, I don't want to overgeneralize, but there's a truth to this. If you speak to girls, women who cut themselves, sometimes you speak to people who have suffered through anorexia, or certain eating disorders in certain ways, and it's a very interesting phenomenon that's happening there. It's not because they're really because of dieting, because they want to be skinny. This is a very superficial understanding. One of the things you find with these kind of people is that one of the reasons they stop eating is because they feel deeply out of control in their life, with their inner world, with their noise, with any external and internal stimulus. And they find that by not eating, it's one area which was so overwhelming that they can control. They get an incredible high. By the way, you can try this, and there is a high. You can just try not eating for 6 hours, and you suddenly get into this mechanism, I don't have to eat, and you kind of get high on that. And then you start, well, I can do it again, and then because of other ego, other fear, it becomes addictive, and it becomes dangerous, and then it becomes sometimes, God forbid, fatal, or psychologically fatal. But the power in it, which is the attractive power, which is a good thing, is that they're looking for a way to control the internal chaos. And anyone that's gotten through pain in their life, despair in their life, tragedy in their life, who goes through divorce, who goes through just psychological collapse and emotional issues of trauma, the salvation is to learn to control your mind. It's to learn that I can make strong decisions, I can get over my bad habits, I can break through that, I can be disciplined, I can get my act together. That's fantastic. That's moving from an animal to a human being. But if that's all you are, you miss the coolest, best experience in your life, which is sometimes called flow state in secular psychological sources, which is whenever you do what you do with such a deep, focused, passionate way that you feel the higher self, a higher wisdom rides through you. Ever listen to jazz musicians that are jamming? Here's the song. I can play the song. I can play it really well. I couldn't even play it, but I've worked to become an animal, to control my fingers, to understand rhythm and song structure. Now I can play beautifully the notes. There's this one woman I knew growing up. She was a very nice woman. I'm sure she's a wonderful person, lived a wonderful life. But whenever I saw her, I felt this like panic, existential panic about what she represented to me. She was a woman that was always a bit lonely. She was always a bit nebuch, not quite got her act together. But what she learned to do is play musical instruments. And she could play like 29 musical instruments. But everything she did was exactly the note, exactly. There was no passion, there was no magic. It was just this kind of thing that was her control, that she could make music. And music's a nice thing, isn't it? And I was like, the way you play it, no. The answer is no, it isn't. But technically, she was quite skillful at the instruments. But if you listen to real profound musicians, all musicians know is first you learn the rules and then you learn how to break the rules. And you listen to jazz musicians, or the kind of like John Coltrane, so Love Supreme and that kind of thing, and the improvisationary kind of stuff. It's like when they're channeling. It's like a prophetic experience. What does it mean, a love supreme? He's telling you a love supreme. It's ecstatic thing that you lose control. But when you lose control, the das, the mind controls. You can lose control down to the animal, to the fear, to the lust, to the ego that comes up and takes it. So then you want to get control. But there's a higher state, which is called ruach, shtus de kedusha, which means a holy insanity, a holy irrationality. Holy irrationality. Which is what anyone who's deeply skilled, especially spiritually skilled people, when you release and you feel that something in the deepest sense takes over and takes your mind. And in the Kabbalistic text, they call that the dimyon of Zah, the dimyon from the higher self, from the Das Elyon, which is what prophecy is. Prophecy is when the images start coming into your mind. That's what Morgenstern calls the Derech HaChalam, right? When the images starts coming into your mind like a dream, but you're seeing truth, and your mind is now out of your control, but it's being guided in a higher way. So the highest prophetic state is a complete loss of control, but you're being controlled by something called your Das Elyon, your higher consciousness. And it's showing you images, showing you meanings. When we do deep work with people, one of the things I do is I put them in the state when you can't work out what to work on, and you ask the higher soul, is this a past life issue? Is this a block that they need? Is the image? And suddenly these images start coming to them, telling them answers, giving them insight, showing them images, taking them to places. And what you're trying to get them to do, if they want to empower that supernatural knowledge, you relinquish control of your mind and you willfully tune in to let it be guided from a higher place. So control is good when this part of my mind is trying to control the chaos of this part of my mind. But control is bad when I'm so intellectual and rational and everything's under control. I'm so controlling that I have no room left for openness, for fluidity, for guidance from above. You get it? So Chakika is about taking the chaos of imagination, but the power of imagination, and learning to focus on the imagery of your mind on a holy thing. This is his kashrus. Until I start to draw into that energy or draw into that power, and then I release imagination, and then I go into that place. Questions? Yes.
Mantra meditation in the East?
That's a statement or that's a question? There is mantra meditation in the East? Correct.
That's what it's saying, kind of foundation.
Mantra meditation in the East is the first thing that mantra meditation in the East is trying to do is still your mind by giving it a central focus. It's called Derech Hazara in Torah text. That's what I said. The first thing it's trying to do is to still the mind, right? Because if you Derech Hazara, it's a repetition of a single pasuk. P.S. talks about this, but Morgenstern also brings down sources to discuss this. That's number one. And therefore, if you give your mind something to focus on, and you repeat that, then it quietens down the noise, like TM. right? So that's number one. And the second thing it's doing is, which is what they don't tell you in TM, which is the highly destructive part, is they tell you, explicitly lying, that the mantra that they're giving you is just a random word with no meaning. It's a lie. And what they're giving you is a very energetically intense, which some people say are Sanskrit word, which some people say are the names of their gods or names of certain forces. So what happens is when you're saying that, then you're drawing on those particular energies. So they're using that mechanism, but then without your will, you're tapping into something you don't want to tap into. Of course, you can use, as a PSS and other Siddiqim say, you can use that with holy things, and that's an absolutely powerful technique to use. There are more powerful techniques to use, but that's certainly an interesting one to explore. Questions?
Yeah, you were talking about the experience of the person you're working with finding his mind to Abraham.
Yes.
As an example. So is that like, is that just like, wow, this is a nice experience, or is it sustaining, or is it something you need to keep practicing to develop a muscle, or like?
You develop a muscle, actually, ironically, undevelop a muscle. You undevelop the muscle of trying to consciously control everything with your mind, and what's got bittul, to actually open to fluidity, and that's a muscle to be able to access it faster and deeper and receive more impactful messages of intuition. Is the more you learn to release your mind, release your control in a controlled way, just to mess with you.
So you need to practice it. It's an ongoing practice.
Everything's an ongoing practice. To experience it once, most people can get there. In Elevation Seminar, and even in these sessions now, we're doing individual things that you can experience right now. But that's because I'm doing a lot of work to kind of trick your mind into getting to that place. In the last few weeks here, most people had those kind of experiences, right? So, but to be able to replicate on a daily level, you want to understand it, you want to get the feeling of it, right? You want to, it's like, I always think it's interesting that, I'm just talking to you now, so as a reference point in improvisational theater, like acting shoes, like theater sports, that kind of stuff. I always thought it was interesting to know that a lot of improv theater groups in the States, they actually get together each week and practice. Do you know improv groups, high-level improv groups practice? I think that's very, very deep and weird, if you will. If the whole goal of improvisational theater is to make something up on the spot, so how can you get together and practice making up something on the spot? And the answer is you absolutely can, because there's absolutely skill sets in improvisational theater that you need to know. One is like, I make you an offer. You never turn down an offer. If I'm saying to you improvisational theater, it's good to see you, Elliot. Hey, who's the elephant you brought in with you? Right? So in improvisational theater, one of the rules is you have to go, oh, this is an elephant. I found this purple elephant last night on the street. What you can't do in improv theater and go, what elephant? That's called a block, right? So you have to practice those skill sets, the wax on, wax off, if you will, of this kind of reality. Now, I'll tell you the reason I use that example is because that skill set of never turn down an offer is one of the primary skill sets that I teach people when you're teaching them high-level intuition work. Because as we play around with some of this stuff tonight, and as we do this in elevation curriculum, and as I do this one-on-one in very intense situations with people, when you get them in that state, and when you say, I want to know the past life this issue came from, or I want to know who's the soul that's in the room with you, or who's it connected to, the offer comes, I say, clear your mind on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, and they always go, nothing. I go, did you get any message? They go, no. I go, really? They go, well, I got something, but I'm sure that's not right. Block. So one of the rules is, anything that comes to you, I've trained myself to do this a lot, anything that comes to you, assume it's right and go with it. You can practice improv, and a lot of the rules of improv are the fluidity of the moment, and to not do something down. When the rule comes to you, accept it. It doesn't mean it's true, but it means you take that and then you move to the next step. And you find that when you do that, when you trust it, then there's a flow that comes in. So there's skill sets to relinquish control in a controlled way. Now, there's a reason why people go insane doing these things, but they don't go insane in elevation seminars. They don't go insane like every day. But there's a reason by very unhealthy people, and I just want to explain this, is just to understand this a deep way. The reason that people who learn Kabbalah go mad, and by the way, they don't generally, okay? But the reason that some people have high-level spiritual experiences and can have psychotic breakdowns, I'm being over-reductionistic, but it's also, there's a truth to what I'm saying now, is because they haven't come out of the animal when they enter into the spiritual. And this is brought down in holy works in a very deep way. That means I'm still in my animal, my demyonas, my fear, my pain, my ego, and all the images that's showing me, right? And the first step, as it says in Kabbalah, is to become a master of the mind and no longer controlled by demyonas. And therefore, when I enter up into higher demyonas, higher imagination, then when it comes in, that I'm saying that's holy and that's holy and I get that's holy, and my actually low imagination says, well, let's turn that into a fantasy, let's turn it into ego. And I go, no, because no, we're not doing that now we're doing this. But according to the Kabbalistic tradition, the reason why there is a tradition, and the ways you do meet individuals that go off and do an ayahuasca trip, or they do some high-level meditation, and they can lose their mind, or they do, things like that, is because they haven't yet mastered the lower emotions of fear, of lust, and ego, and all the imagination associations that come in with them. And then they go up, and then that light comes in, and that light comes in actually floods the lower animal, nefesh bahamas, the animal self, and it all gets mixed up. And therefore, what happens with these people, I've had a few friends that unfortunately have lost their mind temporarily, and they think they're Mashiach, and they also think you're Mashiach, and they think everyone's Mashiach. The fact that they're talking about Mashiach is very interesting. I've been in these intense situations, dealing with these people, trying to help these people. They're actually having a spiritual experience. It's not lock them up because they're just idiots and mad. They've opened to a massive high-level revelation, but they don't yet have the mastery of consciousness to be able to make the distinction between what's coming in from above and what's coming low. So therefore it floods with ego, and it floods with distortion, and it floods with delusion.
How you separate it?
What's that?
How you separate it?
So for most of us don't access such a high level in such an instantaneous state that it's not an issue for us, right? How you learn to separate is how you learn to separate any of your thoughts, any of your negative thinking. When you're upset about something, that's exactly the same skill set of, this is where I'll end before we begin a practice, the same skill set that it takes to become a prophet is what it takes to become just emotionally healthy. That if you can't stop your negative thinking patterns, then let's play a game by saying this. God doesn't care if you're healthy. God wants you to be a prophet. What I mean by that is, we're called B'nai Nevi'im, we're called children of prophets, and the goal of humanity is that we all become prophets. The goal of humanity is not rehab centers. It's not CBT or EFT or... we're indulged in that. It's not Tony Robbins, and it's not, these innate health and all these things which are good, which are necessary, unfortunately, but it's all the Bidi Eved. What does it mean, Bidi Eved? It's because we're stuck in highly destructive, unhuman states. So we're trying to crawl back into emotional functionality, psychological functionality. But that's not the goal. There's a whole debate happening today in the Buddhist world. There's people that accuse the Dalai Lama of selling out because he took mindfulness mainstream as just a tool to emotionally help people. Where anyone who's actually Buddhist knows that's not what Buddha taught, and it was much more complex, and there's rules, and there's skill sets, and there's laws, and there's halakhas, lahavdil, there's a whole thing, and why did he just turn it there? So he would argue because they needed it. He would also argue because it's good cure. Eventually they'll come back to Buddhism, right? But this idea that of self-help, of self-development, of now that I'm healthy, now that I'm functional, now I can be a mindful sniper. Which is the US Army teaches their snipers how to be mindful so that they can kill people more accurately when Trump says so. Now I can be a more mindful stock market guy. I can make more money faster in a more intuitive, mindful way. That's not the goal of humanity. It's the goal of us because we're trapped out of control in our demyonas. We're just trying to get through life and not crash and not feel like a train wreck and not be overwhelmed by anxiety and just be functional. But let's not lose sight of the goal. Take what it takes to get healthy, but then let's step up to our true potential, to open up to higher guidance, higher revelation. quieten the noise of your mind to become functional, to become objective, to become lucid, to become intelligent, to become intellectual. Absolutely. But don't think that's the end of your life. It's certainly not the end of Judaism. Now let's use that as a platform to go higher. And ironically, the very thing you escaped from is now what you have to dive into, to descend to the Merkava with the emotion, with the imagery, to then launch out to something higher. Okay, let's do an exercise. Please make sure your phones are off. The two tools we're going to use for this kashrus. Now, if you've been with us for the last few weeks, we've done these techniques already. I'm just giving you little reference points, little techniques, just to get you do it again and again and again. I'm not giving you all of this kashrus now. We've introduced that in many other weeks, and everything we're doing now is superficial compared to what we do in the mastery program, the seminars. I'm just giving you chunks of information and chunks of experience, and hopefully you'll see the videos and you'll go through them and you'll practice and you'll learn, you'll practice, and eventually you see a much more holistic, full perception of this truth. Here's what you need to know to make it work. Number one, you need to quieten your mind. You have to get the dimyonis out of your mind. And that's what we've learned is something called Yishuv Hadat, to return to consciousness, to return to awareness, to settle the consciousness, to settle my awareness. And there's many techniques in Torah to do that. In these sessions, I've just been using a cycle of breathing patterns. The Baal Shem Tov, many tzaddikim bring breathing techniques. I'm just using cycles of breathing patterns over and over again because it's a very fast, rapid way that requires no skill set, no ability. They can get everyone to quiet in their mind in a very fast period of time. So that's what I'm using here. Once you've returned to self and you've silenced your mind, called hashkata, silencing, then what we want to do is introduce visual stimulus, which has holy association. When we introduce visual stimulus, which has holy association, here's the rule. You ready? You are wherever your thoughts are. What does it mean you are wherever your thoughts are? If I'm thinking about the Beis Hamikdash, I'm not at the Beis Hamikdash. I'm thinking about the spiritual world, I'm not at the spiritual world. I'm thinking of my beloved, I'm not with my beloved. I'm here. This is not you. Your flesh and body is not you. Your flesh and bones is not you. That is called a lavosh. It's just clothes that our selves wear. And ourselves is the mind. And there's many techniques and tricks you can do to realize your mind does not end at your body. It's very expansive. It goes beyond your body. And therefore your mind goes and moves way beyond your body through time and space and connect to whatever it wants. If you silence your mind, and the deeper you silence the mind, the more you can experience that. And there are techniques to learn how to experience it, but that's not for tonight. Once you've silenced your mind, what you want to do is use the power of Ratzon and Dimyon. Ratzon means will. Dimyon means visualization, imagination. If I then create a certain image in my imagination, and I make it very real, and I add detail and color and sensation, I'm increasing the reality of it. What I'm doing is I'm telling my neshama, I'm telling my soul what to tune into. We've learned techniques in previous weeks from the Baal Shem Tov, from the Sefer Charedim. Some of you have the sources in front of you to look at. Which say, and the Baal Shem Tov says clearly, I've said many times, he says you cannot pray with kavana, you cannot pray properly, unless you imagine the light of Hashem is surrounding you from all sides for a period of time before you pray. He says it's just not prayer. In the Elevation Seminar, we do that for an hour, and then you see what happens. People blow out of their bodies when they say a word of prayer, because their soul is super tuned into holiness at that moment. So what happens is the following thing. You imagine the light is all around you. Imagine that's the light of Hashem. And other tzaddikim say, and then you see that light come into you. That's the things we've done in the previous weeks. And then what's happening? So isn't that imagination? Oh, I'm just using imagination. And I feel good and holy because, if I think about pizza, I'll desire pizza. If I think about light and godliness, I'll desire light and godliness. But what you'll see, if you're slightly sensitive at all, is as you do that, that's nice, God's around me, I like this imagery, it's just dimyon, Rav Dessler said, it's just imagination. And you'll start to feel that something else comes in. You start to feel a little bit more open, a little expansive, a little bit more connected, a little bit more something. You start to feel that's not the imagination, that's something else. Because you're doing chakika, you're forcing your dimyon to think in a holy way about something very specific. And therefore you're starting to draw that energetic power and consciousness to your higher soul, called your Das Elyon, which starts to trickle that down into your conscious mind, into the panemius, the inner part of your heart, and throughout the whole of your body. And it comes slowly, and the more you learn to channel it, the more you need to open it, there it is. So listen to these 3 elements I'm going to teach you right now. Number 1 is the quieting of the mind. Number 2 is called Yeshiva. Number 2 is Chakika. We're going to choose one thing, we're going to start to focus on it and build it with imagery, with sight and sound and senses of imagination, something of a holy nature. You got that? And one of the 2 things you can add to that our sages teach us is kavod. We talked about this last week. Kavod and hana, pleasure. When you get pleasure from something, your soul, which is sourced in the power of pleasure. Your soul is sourced in the power of pleasure. Everything your soul and your body pursue in this world is only to get pleasure. When you start to get pleasure in something, your soul becomes hyper-energized and alert. So when you want to connect to all of the Klal Yisrael, all of our people, and you start imagining our people, you start imagining, look how holy we are, look how struggling we are, have compassion on them, but look how noble we are, look at our contribution. You start to really appreciate and get pleasure from that, then your soul goes, oh, I want to bind to that, and I want to feel and experience that. The other is kavod, which is to honor something. When you honor something, you have such respect of that and awe of that, then your soul also goes into awe. This is 2 aspects of ava and yira, love and fear. The awe makes the soul tremble. It has such respect for it, and therefore it's completely focused. When you're afraid of something, in case you haven't noticed, be it a lion or a policeman or a lawyer or whatever, but your Rebbe, you're hyper-fixated on that thing. Fear makes you hyper-fixate on that thing. You can't stop thinking about that fear, right? So that teaches now on a holy level, that's what about, when you cause your soul to respect something, to have awe for it, then the soul hyperfixates on that thing and then starts to draw the power into it and into us. So first we're going to quiet our minds, and then we're going to choose something to fixate on, right? To think about, of holiness. And then the 3rd step is, and that's got the love and the compassion and the senses and the imagery and the awe and the pleasure. And then the 3rd sense is the hardest to do, and I'm just going to talk you through it. And that's what we say, choose and believe it. You're going to say, I'm connected to this, and I trust that. And you know what you do then? Nothing at all. You lose control. I now want to connect to that thing. I stop. I don't try to control it. I don't try to connect it. We say you choose it, and you absolutely believe that you are. That just goes, okay. You ever had that experience before, getting a new idea, a breakthrough idea? It just comes into your head, you're busy doing something, then you just go and have a shower, you just go for a run, and you stop thinking about your sandwich, and all of a sudden it comes into your head. You see, that process is always energized, electric engagement, but it's not when the insight comes, it's when you then detach. Then the insight comes. So first you hyper-engage, and then you choose the ratzon after the dimmer, and the ratzon, I now want to engage with that. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to connect to that energy, and then I trust that I am, and I release. And you see what happens. You ready to try this? Any questions? Okay, I need everyone to stand up for 10 seconds. Stand up. I'm not looking. I want you to get energy in your body. Don't say, okay, and then stand there and do nothing. I really want you to move your body. I want you to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your wrists. Keep going, don't stop. You want to do it for a bit and then stop. That's when you should keep going, keep going. Move your shoulders, your elbows, every part of your body. Don't do it a bit and then stop. When you want to stop, then keep going. That's when the energy comes in, because that's when you have the Ratzon override, the will override on that. Keep doing it. I know it's late. We're going to spend 20 minutes doing this, then we're going to go home, okay? So you're nearly there, but you've come all this way. You've slogged through all the theory, and now you can experience it, but now you just need some energy. You have all the energy you need. Don't say, I'm so tired. Say, I am so energetic. You'll see that makes a difference. You know why? Because those words are drawing energy to you. That's exactly what's happening. So here we go. Here we go. Okay, when you're sitting down, we'll go for it. I just want to tell you one thing before we begin. The process of his lamdas. Shalom, my holy friend Nazir Kimi. With all avodas of his kashrus, of all avodas of this thing, the more you try, the worse it will be. The less you try, the easier it is. The more you try, the more control you want, the more you're locked into your brain, you're stuck. The more you relinquish, right, the better it is. And to add to that, the process of his lamdas, we always discuss in elevation, which is there's nothing you need from this. The biggest block to having a spiritual experience is a desire to have a spiritual experience. You don't need to have this. If you don't have it, it's not proof, it's not true. It's not proof that you're stuck, okay? It's fine. It's just an experiment. Just be curious to the adventure, and we'll see what happens. And if it doesn't work tonight, you'll try it again tomorrow, it'll work. You'll come back next week, it'll work. You'll learn a few extra tricks to break through some things, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll do it. It's yours, it's your heritage, it's your innate capacity of being a human being in this world that you're able to do these things. So if it doesn't work, okay, maybe you're tired and maybe you're blocked, and tomorrow will be much better and much easier. So it's fine. Relinquish the control, and let's explore together. I'm going to use some of the techniques of the Hachana, the meditation we've done in previous weeks. If you know how to do it, you're just going to automatically begin those process of the breathing, of the ladder, of everything we do there. And if you don't know how to do it, so you listen and I'll talk you through it in real time. And we're going to add a little exercise of his kashrus from the Kamana Rebbe, the great tzaddik, the Kamana Rebbe. And he says, I'm just going to give you a heads up so you know what this is when I'm doing it to you. And then you won't need me to do it, you'll just do it yourself. He says that before a person prays, one of the great preparations is when a Yid prays, when we go to pray, we're really praying for the whole of the world. And you can't pray for something unless you connect to it first. Otherwise, you're just saying a bunch of words. But if you connect to it, if you bond with it, and then you, through the power of your prayer, you're drawing Hashem's light into it, that's when transformation truly occurs. So he says before a person begins to pray, they should first connect to all the levels of reality. And he says first to the doimim, to the inanimate objects of the world, then sameach, which is the plant life, then chai, then all animal species in the world. It's an amazing idea. Then medaber, then all of the human beings. Then Klal Yisrael, all of Am Yisrael, then that level of consciousness as well. And then from that, we're connected to all of them. And therefore, our prayers are now being channeled down to all of them. And then we go up into higher worlds. So we're going to play with that experience and just see what happens there. We're going to play with connecting to each other, as we've done before. We're going to play with connecting to all the people watching online, all the people in the world. There's a lot of wonderful things we're going to just practice connecting with. We've done Tzaddikim previously. So we do a lot of things you've done before, but now you're starting to understand the mechanism more and practice it more. And we'll throw in a few new things and see what happens. Are you ready? Great. It's fun. Let's see what happens. Close your eyes when you're ready. Sit up straight on your chair. I highly recommend a straight back. You don't want to fall asleep. You want to be not in a relaxed physical position. You want to be in an alert physical position. So if you're feeling a little tired, you may want to lean forward a little bit. You may often want to open up the palms of your hands and point them up, just in a receptive state. And if you don't want to do any of that, it can still work for you. There's no locked-in posture. There's one prophetic locked-in posture, which is a little uncomfortable for most people, so we're not going to do that tonight. But Hashem is with you, and you have these powers, whatever position you're in. There's nothing you really need to do to get this. It's yours, and you'll get it, and you'll be just fine. So when you're ready and you're committed, I want you to close your eyes and commit to keeping your eyes closed with this whole process. And I hope you, the friends online, turn off your phones. It's the first time for everything. Find a quiet place and do this with us right now. I want you to allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your body to relax. Your shoulders and your body to relax, to completely relax. If you need to shake anything up, you can shake it up. If you need to loosen it up, you can loosen it up. You can do whatever you need to do the whole time. Allow your muscles to relax. Allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your arms and hands to relax. To feel loose and warm and relaxed. To feel loose and warm and relaxed. You're doing great. Focus on your back, your upper back and lower back. Your front, your stomach, everything's relaxing and warm and relaxed. Our upper legs and lower legs. Our hips, our upper legs, our lower legs, everything's just loose and relaxed. Loose and relaxed. Our ankles are relaxed, are warm and relaxed. Sinking into the ground. Our feet are warm and relaxed, our toes are warm and relaxed, sinking into the ground. You're doing great. Your whole body's relaxed. If it's relaxed, that's great. Allow it to relax. You choose that it can relax. Your head relaxes, your ears relax. Your eyes and eye sockets are feeling warm and relaxed. Your nose, your cheeks, your jaw are relaxing, relaxing, relaxed. Whatever you're up to is totally fine. Whatever's happening is totally fine. Whatever you need to happen is totally fine. Don't try and control this process. Trust that whatever comes in, if it's what you expect or not what you expect, is totally fine. We're going to now breathe in cycles of 5. When I start, we're going to exhale, and we're going to inhale over the count of 5 fully and deeply. Then we're going to hold our breath, count of 5. Then we're going to exhale all the way out fully and deeply and hold our breath again. If you find it's hard to hold your breaths so long, that's totally fine. Just breathe then. All this is just choosing to focus on something which is not the noise in our head. The Baal Shem Tov says, if you want to, if you like doing this stuff, when you deeply breathe in, imagine the light is coming in from Hashem into you and filling your mind and your heart and all of your body. And when you exhale, imagine you're giving everything back up to Hashem. And when you inhale, bring it all into you and let the light of Hashem fill you. If that sounds weird to you, you don't know what that means, then don't do it. If you like to do that, it's also chakika. It's also starting to bring in some energy. Try it, but don't stress yourself out about it. The breathing in cycles of 5 is enough. Everyone take a quick big inhale, go now. Quick exhale all the way out now. Beautiful, all the way out, all the way out, all the way out, and hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Slow, deep inhale. Go all the way in. 2, all the way in. 3, 4, 5. Fill it and hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale fully and deeply all the way out. 2, 3, 4, 5. All the way out and hold it. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. And deeply, powerfully in. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out and hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now draw in the light of Hashem, infinite light into you. Go. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. Everything goes back to its source. Release it back to its source. 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw in that light. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3. Come back to normal breathing. Come back to normal breathing. Now we're going to begin the Sulam Ha'aliyah. If you know how to do this, you're welcome to begin. If you don't, here's the instructions. We're going to imagine climbing a ladder. The ladder has 10 steps. We're starting on the ground in our minds and hearts as they are right now. And at the top of the ladder, we're in a place of infinite light, of bliss, of joy, of love, of serenity and peace. Hashem is on top of the ladder. It's the ladder of Yaakov, the Sulam Yaakov. And I'm going to climb the ladder, but this is the instructions to climb. I stand on the bottom rung, and I say, I'm in the first rung, so I count each rung 3 times. Slowly and gently, I just go 1, 1, 1. And when I say that, I just imagine taking 1 step up the ladder, 1 rung, and then I just count 2, 2, 2. And then I step another step up the ladder. But each time I take a step up the ladder, I imagine my whole body lifting up, my soul lifting up, that everything below remains below, all the heaviness, all the noise remains below, and I take 1 step towards that light, that love, that peace, that joy, that bliss, that transcendent pleasure. And then I count the next 3, and I go up again, leaving the lower behind, just stepping higher. If it's hard to imagine light, if you don't know what it means to imagine God or that pleasure, I want you to completely ignore that all and simply count 3 times and take another step up the ladder. Slowly imagine yourself climbing up the ladder. By the way, if you get to 10 and you feel you're already there, I want you to know the ladder has another 10 steps and another 10 steps after that. There's no end to the light, there's no end to the love. Higher and higher. You ready? Begin counting and climbing now. Allow everything lower to fall away, to remain below. The higher you get, the higher you get. The more love, the more light. Swimming in it, washing through you, surrounding you, entering into it of love, of peace, of connection, of joy, of unity, of oneness. Keep climbing higher and higher. Allow yourself to release everything below. Go higher and higher. higher and higher. The noise, the fear, the ego, sadness, anxiety all remains below. Further and further below. Step into light, into peace, into serenity, into revelation. That is who we are. Move into that place, higher and higher. Beautiful, doing great. Now wherever you're up to, I want you to right now imagine that there's a tremendous light above your head, brighter than 1,000 suns. It's the light of the Shekhinah, of the revelation of Hashem, of infinite light. It's above your head. And I want you to imagine that the light pouring down all around you. I want you to open up the palms of your hands to receive it. It's flooding down, the light of love of Hashem, like a waterfall of light coming down around you. And you're sitting within the middle of it, and it's surrounding you. If you want to imagine, to see it washing around you, around and around you, from your head down to your shoulders, your chest, your torso, around and around. It's cleansing you and loving you, and cleansing you and loving you. Just know that you're calm and infinitely safe in that place of light, of holiness, of joy, of awe, of shefa, of bracha, of chiyas, of kedusha. When I say 3, that light is going to penetrate into your mind, to the top of your head, and fill your mind. You're going to see it and feel it. 1, 2, 3. It enters into your head and your mind. It washes out all the old thoughts, the destructive thoughts, and your mind is filled with joyful, blessed, holy, peaceful thoughts of love, of truth, of goodness. When I say 3, that light is going to come down through the neck into the heart and fill your heart. Wash out everything that's not holy and good and peaceful and loving and unified, and fill it with everything that is. 1, 2, 3. Coming into your heart, expand it into the heart, open your chest to receive that. To feel holiness and joy, to feel love, to feel self, to feel divinity, to feel unity, to feel compassion. When I say 3, it's going to go from the head to the heart, to the whole of the body, to the hands, to the limbs, amunas ha'avarim. And feel all the resistance, all the heaviness, and wash it out with tremendous light, tremendous love. 1, 2, 3, now. Light of the Shekhinah is above you, it's around you, it's within you. It's flooding through you and cleansing you, flooding through you and cleansing you. If you can feel that a little, say yes. Keep going. Be aware of the distinction between imagination and a real sense that starts to come to you. A real feeling, which is not imagination. If you can feel that distinction a little, say yes. Good, keep going. If you can't yet, that's fine, we're just beginning. Just beginning. Okay. Let's increase the Hiskashrus work. First beginning, as we learn from Halacha itself, is that it's not enough to do this work alone. We're here connected with this group of people in this room right now. I want you to imagine this room, this space, and the people in particular within it. What you know of them, what you see, the ones that you know, the ones that you don't know, how it feels to you, the sounds of them, you can hear them, see it, sense them around you. If you're watching online, choose to connect to the people in this room. If you don't know what that looks like, imagine it. I want you to think how amazing these people are in the middle of winter coming out, schlepping across town to be here. They're obviously seeking, they're obviously yearning, they're obviously exploring, they're obviously trying to find. Have awe for them. Get pleasure from a group of people doing this. See it and feel it and know it. And on the count of 3, we're going to choose to connect to them. When I choose to connect to them, I'm going to open up my hands and my heart to receive them. I may get images of sense and energy, a passion for them, a caring, a sense of love. I may get a sense of their suffering or their pain or their presence. I'm going to choose that I'm connected to them. I'm absolutely going to believe at that moment that I am. I'm going to choose it and just believe it. The power of choice alone and trusting that choice is the power to access his kashrus. On the count of 3, you're absolutely going to choose and believe that you're connected. 1, 2, 3, go. Open up your hands and receive the blessing from that. I'm going to strengthen that connection. I'm going to choose and believe you're connected to them. Again, 1, 2, 3, even more so now. If you felt an expansion from that, say yes. Wonderful. Here we go. There are many people watching online all around the world, both now and in the future. Right now we're going to expand our circle of consciousness, our minyan, to include everybody watching online right now and everybody who will be watching this video. We're going to open our energy, our consciousness, our das to be mispashet, to extend out to them, and they can choose to enter into the state with us and bless us with their consciousness. You can do that right now. And everyone will be included in this expanded consciousness together, and we will feel and sense that. I'm using these words to tune your mind into making hakika so it knows and feels this is true. I want you to think how amazing it is that people around the world and all that craziness out there, they choose and they go to YouTube, they sit down and they do this. Who are these people? What are their thoughts? What are their feelings? What are their journeys? What are they lacking? What are they yearning for? What are their struggles? What are their pains? How much love do they need? How much compassion do they deserve? Have honor for them. They say we're connecting with them. Get pleasure. How awesome it is that those people are there. You can sense a little of who they are. You get images, some sense of them. If you can sense them a little now, say yes. Okay, there's some of them. So we're going to choose to connect to them and bond with them right now. 1, 2, 3. Choose and believe it now. Excellent. So we're going to take that and hold space for that. Take that and hold space for that. And I want you to choose one great spiritual master from our history, from the Torah. It could be Avram, it could be Sarah, it could be any of the Avat, the Imahat, any of the great masters, any of the Baal Shem Tov, of Nachman of Breslov, of Yisrael Salanter, any of the Moshe Rabbeinu, they're our teacher. And now we're going to connect to them. We can connect to their soul. We can learn and grow from them, get blessing, get guidance from them. Are you ready? I want you to start to think about what you know of them, their stories, the images. That's why we tell Hasidic stories, to connect to the energy of that soul. What were their properties? What are their gifts? Choose someone right now. Create imagery. Think of the morals, the ethics, the actions. Think of the Torah, an incredible, powerful way to connect them is through their Torah ideas that they said. And their Torah is bound to their soul. And as you're doing that, I want you to imagine that tzaddik. I want you to have tremendous awe, tremendous kavod, fear of awe, just how extraordinary they are. What would it be like to feel if they were in the room in front of you? How would you feel? And I want you to get pleasure from them, how amazing that they existed, how amazing their contribution, how amazing their teachings, how amazing their struggle. I want you to think of the imagery, the wisdom, the honor, the kavod, the awe, the pleasure, the joy, the love. Keep going back and forward more and more. You're doing it. You're now teaching your soul to seek their soul, to draw their soul towards us. And in the count of 3, we want to connect to them, we want to bind our soul with theirs, and we're going to become aware of their presence with us. Aware of their presence with us. You choose that you want to be connected, and you instantly believe they are, and then you open your heart and your hands and your soul to receive their presence, and there they will be. If that doesn't make sense to you, good, relinquish control. 1, 2, 3, choose to believe it now. You can sense their presence a little, say yes. Strengthen it now. We're going to strengthen it and get it even more to be really with them. Don't try and do this. You're not going to see them. You may not know what this means. If you sense it a little, just their presence, their energy, their thoughts. 1, 2, 3. Again, more. Even more, you can be even closer to them, be more open to them, more mind melded with them. 1, 2, 3, choosing to believe it now. I want you to take a second right now to say hello to them. If you have a question in your life, some guidance that you need, some insight that you need, some blessing that you need from them, ask them, talk to them, and you'll receive an answer. Have a follow-up question, get a follow-up answer. Everything's coming from Hashem. It's all Hashem. It's just channels to connect that. Ask another question. If you feel you can interact a little and getting some kind of answer, say loudly, yes. I'm going to ask again. If you can make the connection a little, say yes. Good. Ask for a blessing from that master right now. They should bless you with exactly what you most need in life. Trust any image, any word, any insight. Trust when it comes to you, it's the right one. Wonderful. Let's go higher. Let's follow the commander's path. I want everyone to choose right now, what's one thing you most need to pray for in life? What's one thing you most need to pray for in life? Choose it now. Choose what it is. Let's prepare. Whatever prayer we're praying for ourselves, I want you to think of a prayer that most needs to be prayed for the world. For everyone you know, what they're going through. All the challenges of the world today. Let's raise ourselves up to the state of super connection with all of the world, of all the levels, and all of these levels are within all of us. We're going to choose to connect to the doimim, to the inanimate life, to every rock in the world, every mountain in the world, every stone in the world, of water, of fire. Imagine the biggest mountains, see it with tremendous awe. Imagine how deep all the gold and silver and the diamonds underground, all the oil underground, all the sand in all of the world. See it, love it, how awesome it all is. On the count of 3, we're going to choose to connect to it. Choose to be connected to all of that, to feel how awesome it is, how massive it is, its properties, each part has its own sensation. That's a part of you and you're a part of it. On the count of 3, choose to connect to all of the doimim, all the inanimate life and all of the world. See it and sense its power and its strength, its unique property. On the count of 3, you're going to choose to connect to it, and you're going to believe you are, and you're going to feel that energy. 1, 2, 3, go. Feel its energy and its power within you, of the fire, of the water, of the stone, of the earth. That's built into you now. Take that with you higher. Draw your consciousness higher. Draw it all up. Sameach, plant life. Every tree in all of the world, every flower in all of the world, all the grass in all of the world, which every blade of grass has an angel. That's what you're connecting to. That's what our job is in the world, is to lift it all up. Every flower, every petal, all of plant life. See the mountains, the valleys, the hills, and all the continents. See it, visualize it. Breathe it in, soak it up. Imagine your arms are opening to hold it all. And now get a sense of it, of how massive it is, how beautiful it is. Get pleasure from it. The biggest forest, the most massive trees, all of plant life. You ready? You're going to choose to connect to it and believe that you are. 1, 2, 3, go. And feel that massive treeness within you and flowerness within you. Feel it bonds with the stone and the fire and the water within us. Now, next level, animals. Every lion in the world, every giraffe in the world, every animal big and small. Ratz katzvi, run like a tzvi. Jump out of bed like a lion. We want to draw all that energy into us. Think of every elephant in the world, every sweet little mouse in the world. Think of everything. Everything has its power, Perak Shira. Everything has its song. See it all. Our job is to elevate it all up to Hashem with our consciousness. On the count of three, we're going to connect to all that animal life of all the countries around the world, every kangaroo, every element in the world that we join and bond and connect. 1, 2, 3. Bring it into you that you feel the power and strength of that. Now the whole human race, all the human race, all its wisdom, all its yearning, all its knowledge, all its capacity to overcome struggle and challenge. Focus on the positive, all its wisdom, all its knowledge, all its insight, all its mastery of the world. We want to give to that. We want to bless that. But before you bless something, you have to connect to that thing. See all the different varieties of people, all the different colors and cultures. There's good within it. There's an aspect of good within all of it. That's what we focus on. That's what we connect to. See that, feel that, be that on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, connect to it. Amazing. Now Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, the Israelites. It's our job as a chosen people, not to be chosen in arrogance to use, but to be chosen in expanded consciousness to bless, to guide, to be in all the goyim. And to the great spiritual masters, the great tzaddikim through generations, we want to bind to them and feel their power of awe, of pleasure, see their faces, sense their struggles and journeys and successes. Feel elevated into that place on the count of 3 to all of Klal Yisrael, all of Am Yisrael in its most noble, elevated, holy state. Choose to connect and hold space. 1, 2, 3. And now within you, realize that the source of all of those things and all of those dimensions is the infinite light of Hashem. Higher, that's creating those things, that's generating every cell in our body now, that's filling us with light, that's filling us with love. Every molecule of your body, every cell of your body is being generated consciously and willfully by Hashem right now. On the count of 3, we choose to release all our identity with this world and just fall back into Hashem's light and love, infinite light and love. 1, 2, 3. Now, in any given moment, choose to connect to this group. Choose to connect to everyone watching online, with all their animal kingdom, with all the tzaddikim, with everything. Just one at a time. Connect and bring it up. Connect and bring it up. Connect and bring it up. And now pray with all your heart. Take that prayer that you wanted to pray for yourself and pray for it with all your heart. If you feel a lot of light and energy, choose to share that with the group on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And keep praying. Pray even harder by focusing even more. Draw Hashem's light and love down into you as you're praying with those words. Feel it fill you and satiate you. Now I want you to pray right now for the whole of the world, that thing you chose, and see it come down through all the world, that light flood the tzaddikim, flood Klal Yisrael, flood the Israelites, flood all of the human race, every man, woman, and child, every race, color, and creed. See them, feel them, share that light with them, see it going to them. Bring that light down to all of the animal kingdom, all of the plant life, all of the ground, all of the earth. Pray that thing you feel they most need. And now if you want, if you're connecting in any way, Ask the Sadhak or Sadhakas, that holy master that you chose, you drew towards you, ask them to bless everybody else's prayer in this room, everybody else watching this video, everyone connected to Akhabura, and pray for everybody else with that spiritual master together to take us all higher and higher in our lives with every kind of blessing and shefa and bracha and tzlacha. That everybody's individual prayer should be answered, that all of us should be guided towards our shlemus, our tikkun, our healing, our perfection. The last stage, I want you to turn to Hashem right now. I want you to connect to everyone in the room, connect to everybody in the world, connect to all of Klal Yisrael, connect to all of the tzaddikim, connect to the light and the love, connect to your inner potential, connect to your higher soul. Imagine you're a channel to share this light throughout all of the world. And I want you to turn to Hashem right now and say, if there's one message you need to know, one insight, one healing, one memory, there's one piece of guidance, there's one line, one pasuk, if there's any information about your past, present, and future that needs to know, when I count to 3, may it be known to you, may it just pop into your head. I want you to trust whatever comes to you is right and good and helpful. If you get nothing, Hashem also loves you. If you get something, just accept it and go, okay. Think of the biggest challenge you're suffering, the biggest place you need insight, guidance, a breakthrough, a direction, an answer to a question. The Baal Shem Tov told us we can do this and should do this. You're in good hands. Trust the power of the Baal Shem Tov to guide us in this process. On the count of 3, ask it to Hashem now and just be completely open. Don't try and get the answer. Release. Let it go and let any answer come to you. If you need to know about a past life, yourself, your meeting, your struggle, solution, be clear on what it is now, fix it in place, and let Hashem answer you on the count of 3. Hashem can totally do this. Relinquish control. 1, 2, 3, now. If you got some kind of answer or guidance at all, say yes. If you got no answer or guidance at all, say no. That's what I thought. So there's more yeses than people want to say. That's fine. Ask one more time. 1, 2, 3, go. Take a few more seconds to say thank you to Hashem for any light, any clarity, any insights. To pray for anyone else you need to pray for. To direct any healing you need in your body, to direct any of that light or clarity towards that part of your body. Take another minute to do that in your own time. When you're ready, you can just take a few deep breaths and open your eyes. Okay. Here we are again. Let's wiggle your fingers a little to make sure you're back here. See, there's a lot of tears. That's okay. If you're still watching at home and you tried that, so send a like or a love, depending on how it went. Let's see what the audience response is out there right now. Hands up if something interesting happened for you in there. Let's show a raise of hands. Let's say hands up high. Interesting happened in there. Hands up if something wonderful happened in there for you. Let's see, show of hands now. Okay, that's interesting. Hands up if nothing happened for you and you felt very blocked. Let's see a show of hands for that. Okay. The men lost their hands somewhere in that process, so they're trying to raise their shoulders, but there's not much to offer in there. Hands up if you felt a little of the power of his kashrus, of chakika, that as you began to imagine the animal life, the plant life at Tzaddik, you suddenly felt there was an energy, a sense, an image, a interaction of something to that thing. Hands up high if you felt that a little. Hands up high, let's see it. And let's go there. Wonderful. Isn't that interesting? Hands up high if you felt that you can for sure make a distinction between imagining it tzaddik or imagining we're all sitting in a room and then suddenly the inner feeling or sense that that's reality. Hands up if you were able to make that distinction. Great. Kol hakavod, that's wonderful. I'm very happy to hear that. Hands up if you were able to feel that there was a tzaddik or tzaddik as a great spiritual master that really, quote unquote, I don't know what this means either, came to you when you chose to connect to them. Hands up high if you got that. Amazing. Hands up high if you interacted, you asked a question, you got some kind of answer or blessing or guidance. Oh, I love those hands. They're my favorite hands. Wonderful. Hands up when we connected to Hashem, we felt suddenly, miraculously with Hashem in some way. Fine. There's a lot of weird stuff happening here. If you said yes to any of those things, send a like or a heart right now. Give me a heart so I know what's happening out there for you all. There's a lot of stories, I'm sure, that happened for people in there. A lot of journeys you all went on. So you see, in summary, that we can be objective, we can be healthy, but we can just be locked in our head and locked in control. But then we are yared to the makava, we descend into the power of Dimyon, and we start choosing what to think of. And through choosing what to think of with our dim, with imagination, with kavod, with yira, and with ava, with pleasure, you saw how that helped, then you're telling your Das Elyon to bind with that element, no matter where it is in space and time, and then you suddenly get influx, you get insight, you get wisdom, you get guidance, you give and receive energetically from that thing. Any questions? I've learned this is not a good forum to ask people to share the experience. I have to open up the group a little to achieve that, and this is not quite that forum yet. Any questions about what happened in there? Yes.
I have a general question.
Okay. Last question, and we shall end.
So I really connect a lot to what you're saying, but I get sometimes like confused with like when and how to use this stuff, and also like part of me feels like this is great. It's a great way of like feeling good and connecting, and it's like,
Right.
But then there's a part of me that's like, but life is really so beautiful. Like things in this world are so beautiful. It's like, am I trying to like escape? Like I don't understand. Like
This is not against life in this world is so beautiful. This is enhancing the beauty in this life. Number one.
Like how? Like,
Well,
is there a spiritual way of like saying how?
There for sure there is, but I'm still confused by the question you're asking. First of all, what is prayer? Prayer is not a negation that there is beauty in life. Prayer is seeking to increase beauty and goodness and revelation in the darkness of life. I mean, you can say how nice life is, but there's plenty of people struggling in your community and in the world we're in. So when I seek to transform some of that area of challenge, so that's part of what my obligation to do as a yid in this world, right?
I guess what I'm asking is like when I think of like Tzaddikim, I think of them like always being connected and kind of like in this like meditative state. But it's like, are we trying to achieve that, or we're just trying to like really enjoy?
As a parent, you are trying to be connected to your children in a meditative state. That changes your anger, your desire to control, your constant need to fix them or heal them all the time, the frustration we have, the exhaustion we have when we're dealing with them, right? the more connected you are to yourself, to Hashem, then the more connected you are to their soul, and the more you can guide them from a deeper, more compassionate, more present, more peaceful, more insightful place.
Okay.
That's what a tzaddik is supposed to do. A tzaddik is not a person that's disconnected from this world. A tzaddik is a place that interacts in the most healthy, profound, and fully engaged and present way with everything in this world.
But can it seem like they're disconnected?
It may seem to you like they're disconnected. Would it seem to them like they're disconnected? A tzaddik would look at you and think that you're disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of what we're interacting with this world is that it's, for most people, most of the time, it's in a highly disconnected way. We all have a Yetzer Hara, and the word Ra and the Yetzer Hara actually means disconnection. The definition, right? And it means when I act with people from ego, from lust, from fear, then I'm always acting in a disconnected way. What a tzaddik is seeking to do is to connect deeper to my activities. All the tzaddikim say, Chazal say, that when a person makes money and has to make parnasa and has to buy and sell, right? The more I do that with emunah, with faith. Emunah means with presence, with divinity, that everything, I'm not doing to get money, to steal money, I don't need to control the market, I don't need to convince you to buy this even though it's not good for you. The more I do it with deep presence connection, the more blessing that comes from it. When I make that shoe as a shoemaker, the more goodness is in that shoe that I can contribute goodness to a person's foot to allow them to walk through life. That's much more present than just, why didn't you buy the shoes? No, I'm not giving you money back if the shoe is broken, so go buy it somewhere else, right? So it's a whole different way of interacting with reality. Could a person use in the wrong way? Yes. But what would happen if you use in the right way? That's a lot to think about. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody leave a message in the box. I'd love to hear some of your experiences in the process. Signing up, yes.
So this is something you meant to practice.
Yes.
So what's the takeaway for the week? Because that was a lot of stuff.
Well, this is an ongoing experience, and people are just practicing the experience. So you can see other classes to know how we're practicing it. There's a thing called the Hachana that's there, and people are practicing that a little in their prayers each week. To try the breathing, try the connecting before you pray each day. Right? Try the breathing cycles of 5. Try climbing the ladder. Try connecting to everything in the world. Try connecting to the community that you're in. Try connecting to Hashem, and then try praying from that place.